This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning again, and thank you for joining us. As you're entering in, I want you to become familiar with this. If you have questions or you'd like to communicate with our team, there is a chat space. So it is at the upper right hand on my screen. If you see a talk bubble, that is our chat space. Click on there to insert your questions, concerns, or just to say hello to the group today.
I don't see my name. You talking about the little circle up the top with the little red dot on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I clicked on it and waiting for a name. Yeah, I don't see Patricia Crosby.
Good morning. You might not be able to see your name, but we can see your name.
Oh,
If you type something in the chat, we can address it and then we can get back to you. But we can see your name. I'm not sure how to get you to see it for yourself.
I'm fine.
Okay. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you. Just a second. Thank you.
Okay, well, it is 10 a.m. and I think that we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning. It is great to see everyone. My name is Kalila Slater Harrington, Chief Program Officer for Family League of Baltimore. It is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you here today. We are delighted to have you with us today and to share this important information with about the Child Care COVID-19 Stability Fund. Thank you for joining us and for the work that you do every day in service to children and families. We know that because of you, children feel seen and heard. We know because of you, children get the fundamental literacy skills they need. And because of you, children get nutritious meals they need to learn and grow. Because of you, parents like me go to work or engage in self-care with peace of mind. We thank you so much for the work that you do every day. Our intention today is to provide each of you support in accessing this wonderful funding opportunity. Before we go further, I just want to stop and acknowledge Mayor Young and the Mayor's Office for Children and Family Success for recognizing the importance of children and families have safe and reliable care, and for ensuring that funding is available to support the stability of child care providers such as yourselves. I would also like to acknowledge my fabulous Family League team. Since we were asked to launch this fund, this has been an all hands on deck effort. Each team member has dedicated themselves to providing support and assistance to child care providers and for each other. I could not be more proud to work with this group of colleagues. I will ask that as each team member interacts with you today, that they introduce themselves to the group. As an architect of change, we care deeply that community has access to needed resources to create lasting outcomes for children and their families. This session has been designed with that in mind. We are so grateful that our attorney, Don Walsh of Wright Constable and Scheme, LLP, has joined us today to share information about the CARES Act, through which this funding has been made available. Our communications team will walk us through the application step by step, and then we will get to some of the frequently asked questions. We know that there will be questions as we move through this process and all of this information. We invite you to post those questions in the chat box, which, as I acknowledged earlier, is at the upper right-hand corner of your screen. It may have a red dot on there to signify that there are messages in the chat space. We will do our best to monitor that chat space and respond to your questions there, or we will try to address. This has been a fast-moving process, and we know that there are still questions that you may have that we may not have yet have answers for, or maybe even clear about a response. We are committed to identifying an answer and posting it in our frequently asked questions on our website, or by contacting you directly for individual case. Now, I will turn it over to our dear friend and colleague, Don Walsh.
Can't hear him.
I got you. Sorry about that. This technology is a little new to all of us still. Good morning to everybody. I've been asked to sort of just give you an overview of what the CARES Act is doing and what kind of expenses ultimately you can recover and petition for to Family League to ultimately try and get paid as a result of all this. We know everybody has been impacted in some fashion by the pandemic, and what the goal of this program is, and the mayor put in place, is ultimately to help those people who are sort of on the ground dealing with individuals who need some help in all this, and trying to make sure that these programs and quality care continues to be developed for children. The first thing you really have to be asked, everybody I think knows as part of this process that you're going to have to explain that you have indeed been impacted by the pandemic in some way. If you've not been impacted, that's fantastic. We're very happy for you, but obviously that's sort of the first threshold that you're going to have to cross to get into this program and try and make sure you put a petition in. After that, you really got to identify what costs and how you think you will ultimately use the money. There are not a lot of restrictions, but there are some restrictions in terms of what the money can be used for. The money has to ultimately be used in order because you've been impacted by the pandemic and you're trying to defer or defray some of the costs or the impacts of the pandemic as a result of you and how you're going to use this money. So some of the things that we need you to think about when you're putting together your petitions for what you're going to use the money for are identifying those specific expenses that you're going to ultimately use the money for. And the things that we ultimately tell you to try and think about in the process is make sure that the expenses you're talking about are truly something that is a result of an impact. If you want to put in a new playground system in your backyard, or you want to buy a bus or something like that, that ultimately is going to help people, unless you can identify somehow that it will be something that you need to do as a result of the pandemic, we suggest that that's not what you suggest that the money is for. The other thing ultimately that we're looking for at the end of the day is that we do have certain responsibilities, not only to make sure that you've identified what you're using the money for, but also that we can at some point come back and audit and verify that you've in fact used the money for those purposes. So we're going to ask that anything that you do use the money for, that ultimately you maintain some sort of receipts, some sort of record keeping that we can come back and collect that at some later point in time if necessary in order to justify the expenses. Some of the types of things that you can probably use it for that you can identify Obviously, if you have additional cleaning supplies, if you have to get PPE, additional wipes, gloves, masks, all those types of things are obviously recoverable costs. If you have personnel costs, you suddenly have additional people in there, or you have people because you've been impacted by the pandemic, you want to make sure that you can continue to pay them at the regular salary, at the regular rates. Those expenses can be covered as well. If there are any hard costs that you have, if suddenly you have more students who are doing remote learning, so you need to increase your internet presence, your bandwidth, if you need to buy a couple extra devices or computers to assist in that process, those are also things that ultimately could be traced back to the pandemic that you could list and you would be able to include in all this. Additional beds, blankets, any of those types of things. That's ultimately the kinds of expenses that we're looking for to try and make sure we can help you and cover those and make sure that they're protected as a result of all this. With that said, I suppose we'll pass it on to the individuals who are going to talk about the specific application and the process that you have to go through in order to submit these expenses.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandria Leonard. I am the Digital Media and Design Coordinator for Family League, and I am going to take you through the application with the help of some of our other Family League folks on the call this morning. First, just making sure it's loading on the meeting. Before you begin the application, there's a few things that we want you to know so that way you can complete your application successfully. First, we want you to know that you can take as much time as you need. You can go back to the previous pages and check your work. However, you must complete the application at one time, in one sitting. You cannot save the application and come back and complete it. You would have to start a new one all over again. So that's why we're going to go over what you need to make sure that you can have everything you need to complete it at one time. Hold on, give me 1 second. Before you begin your application, make sure that you have a copy of the Maryland State Department of Education license, a copy of your certificate of good standing, if you have it. Also, the completed CARES Act budget template, and you can download the Excel spreadsheet or the fillable PDF located at the top of the application. And we're going to show you how to get there. You get to the application by familyleague.org/stabilize childcare. And this is going to help me get to it so that I can show it to you.
Alex, while you're going to the website, I'm going to remind everyone to please mute their phones. The feedback is impacting others' ability to hear. Thank you.
Yes, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So this is the Child Care COVID-19 Stability Fund page. Like I said, you can get through to it from the /stabilize childcare URL. And it has all the information that you need regarding the application. We started the application on October 1st, and we will be taking first come, first serve submissions through November 12th. Oh, here, if you scroll down to the bottom, this is where you get the overview, some of the things that Kalila and Dawn have said. Frequently asked questions, which is where most of the questions you have may be answered here. We'll go over them at the end. And then also the application. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm getting a little feedback, just want to make sure. Okay. So here, again, we stop to make sure that you have all of the documents that you need, the license, a copy of your certificate of good standing, if you have it, the template that you can download here as an Excel spreadsheet or here as a PDF. As you go through the application, you need to enter the name of the center. I'm going to make this up. Oops. This is where you type your number in. A mailing address. Your email, your contact information, if you have an additional contact person here, and then check to see if you are, excuse me, a minority-owned business or a woman-owned business. This page is if you manage more than one center. If you are managing more than one, you can check yes, so that you can input that information for the other centers. Step 3 is your banking information. This is how you will receive the funds. You put the name of your bank, your routing number, and then your bank account number. I'm just going to copy and paste this number for the efforts of this. And then what type of account it is. Here is where our program team is going to hop in and explain the importance of these questions. This, I'm sorry, can you hear me? Is someone talking? Okay. The first question says, current economic uncertainty makes this grant application necessary to support ongoing
Alex, I can jump in now.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So everyone, these questions are actually attestations. They are what the federal government needs so that, yes, this funding is needed for this time. And so there are things that by answering, you are telling us and certifying that the economic uncertainty has impacted your operations. You're also declaring if you have received other federal dollars. So for example, if you received a Paycheck Protection Program loan, that is all coming from the same pot of money as this CARES Act funding for which this fund is being made available. So we need to know that so that we can ensure both for your sake and ours that we are not giving duplicative funding. The last thing that the federal government wants is for you to use federal dollars to pay back a federal loan. So these questions are being asked in an attempt to get that information, but also to help us all think through what funds we have accessed and how we need to be transparent about that.
This is where you will upload the budget template. You have to upload the budget template either as a PDF, an Excel spreadsheet, or as an image with the .jpg or the PNG file. Here, you can talk about, check all that may apply, whether it was loss of revenue, increase of enrollment, staff loss. And then if your child care was forced to close, please list the dates of closing and reopening, and then impacts that may not be listed above.
No.
I am uploading a PDF for the purposes of this application. This field is required. Okay. Registration and enrollment information. What type of center do you operate? You select which one. You need to upload a valid license to this application and the date, and then mark if it was open as of February 15th, 2020. As you see, you will not be allowed to go to the next station, the next slide, before you have completed everything that is required. Step 6 of 7, registration and enrollment. Ages that you care for. Any restrictions, days of operation. Hours of operation, overnight care. Do you currently participate in the child and adult care food program? Yes or no? And then this is the application checklist at the end. You've entered all the contact information completely and accurately, including 2 phone numbers. This is really important because the email and the phone number that you list on the application will be the contact information that our team will use to get back to you if we have any questions or concerns regarding your application. You're certifying and attesting that you were not receiving duplication of funds and that the grant funding received will not be used for the same purpose of the loan received from the Paycheck Protection Program. You've uploaded your completed CARES Act budget template. You've entered bank account information for the electronic transfer of funds. You've completed program history questions and included a copy of your licensure and registration. And then lastly, a certificate of good standing if you have that available. You will not be able to get to this step 7 of 7 without completing all of those other things because it's required in order to advance to the next page. You will sign here and date here, and then you will submit your application. I'm not going to submit this application because it is a test application. But once you submit, you should receive an email with a copy of your application and notification that we received it. After you submit your application, you should, like I said, you should receive a certification notification on that page and then an email copy of your application. We are reviewing the applications by a single source review process, and you will be notified once we receive it, and then once it's approved, funds will be dispersed by Thanksgiving. And if there are any questions about your application or your uploaded document, you'll be contacted directly within 48 hours of your submission from a member of our team. Right now, we're going to pause for questions and answers. I know that there are some questions in the chat, and there are members of our team that are eager to address some of your concerns.
Thanks so much, Alex, for walking us through step by step on the application. That certainly did raise a lot of questions, and let's get right to them. One of the most frequently asked questions is about the certificate of good standing. Family League is a grant maker of public funds, and typically when we grant funds, we collect a certificate of good standing. We understand that not all child care providers, particularly those who are family and home-based, may not have a certificate of good standing. We understand that, and as such, we have not made the certificate required. However, if you do have one, we would like you to submit that. All you need is your MSDE registration. We do have to verify that you are a child care provider through MSDE in order to receive these funds. Just wanted to offer that point of clarification. Also, I see some questions about a minority business enterprise or a woman-based enterprise. We would like for you to mark that box if you are either legally certified as we call it, MeBe-Weebie, or if you qualify, if you are a Black woman-owned business or you are a woman-owned business, we would like to collect that information and know it to make sure that we are extending this opportunity to everyone possible. Okay, I'm going to mute for a moment and some of the other questions that are coming up. I invite any of my other colleagues to jump in here.
Hi, I'm Kalila. Hi, it's Ruby. Can I just quickly ask a question or clarify one? The PPP and the IDOL, that was one of the questions that some of the providers have. They were saying that whether this will disqualify them from applying if they see the PPP and the IDOL, if they received it.
No, they're not disqualified from applying, but they just have to use it for a different purpose than they did for the PPP and EIDL loan.
Oh, okay. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, the other expense, the one that was said about the playground, what if they have equipment that they had? Because now with the COVID crisis, the providers will need a lot more outdoor time. Would that be part of an approved expense for the budget?
Based on our legal counsel, it sounds like it's not an allowable expense, but I'll defer to Don Walsh.
Okay. Thank you.
If the goal of the equipment is ultimately to accomplish social distancing and to assist in the social distancing, then you can make an argument that it's allocable back to this cost. If you're just putting in new playground equipment because you have the funds now to do that, that would not be considered an allowable cost on these circumstances.
Okay, Thank you.
There was also a question about how do we know we received your application? You should receive a confirmation email. If you do not see it in your inbox, make sure you're checking the same email that you used in your application as well as your spam mail.
Kiana, there's a question. What kind of expenses can be listed on the template? Cleaning materials, hand towels, please give examples.
Yes, so you can have rent, mortgage, gas and electricity, internet costs, any materials associated with virtual learning, computers for the children, blankets for the children, extra bedding for children, salaries and fringe. And one of the questions was, can the providers include their salary in a budget? Yes, they can. And then any personal protective equipment.
Does it matter if the utility is in your spouse's name?
No, I mean, as long as it's in the center where the children are being serviced, then that's fine.
One more question in the chat is, can you be reimbursed for items charged on a credit card for partition, supplies, etc.?
Well, if you have the funds, you wouldn't be using the credit card. It's going to be for expenses from October 1 through December 30th. Are you saying that you already purchased something as of October 1 on a credit card and you want to use this to be reimbursed?
Yes. Yes is the answer, the response.
Okay. Don, are these, is that allowable?
Well, it's incurred during the period of time that we're talking about. So I suppose as long as the expense was incurred during the period of time, and you can say that it was allocable back to the reason because of the pandemic, then there would be an argument that you could say that it's recoverable under this.
Thank you.
I mean, just keep in mind, obviously, we want to make sure that at some point we hold on to whoever the provider is and what you spend the money on, you hold on to the receipts, you hold on to whatever that documentation is so that you, at some point, it's easy to trace it back and say, yes, this is caused by this particular reason and this is what the expense was for.
Are the funds taxable?
When you say taxable, do you mean you have to file it on your taxes as taxable income?
Yes.
No, it's a grant.
The grant. No, that.
Is the maximum amount 20,000 per center? How is the amount dispersed determined?
So the amounts are determined based on the number of children served. But for the family child care providers, the maximum amount is $5,000. For child care centers, if you serve less than 50 children, you get up to $12,000. If you serve 50 to 99 children, you get up to $15,000. And if you serve 50 or more children, you get, if you serve 100 or more children, you get up to $20,000. There was a question about the confirmation email. Someone checked their spam and they still do not have confirmation. The email should look like the actual application that you completed. If you do have an issue, please email us on the address from the application.
Okay, I see that Miss Robin has a question about amending a budget that was submitted. Kiana, can you address that?
Yeah, so if you need to amend, just email us and let us know that you want to amend your budget. Do not go through the application all over again, because it's going just to look like a duplicate application. We just want you to simply just email us your requests and your changes, and then we can make the changes for you in your application.
The email has been listed in the chat, but it's stabilizedchildcare@familyleague.org.
I'm sorry, I'm a daycare provider. Can she repeat what she just said about sending something in if you're changing your temperament?
Yes, you can email your revisions that you want to make on your budget, and we will then make them for you on our end. And you send the email to stabilizedchildcare@familyleague.org. And the email is in the chat box as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just saw a great question. Someone received a email confirmation from Marvo Simon. I just want to acknowledge that Marvo Simon is one of our wonderful team members. She is individually responding to many of the applicant questions and confirming receipt of your application. So yes, that is a real email. It is a very real person on our team who jumped in to make sure that we are most responsive to.
Can I ask a question verbally?
Please jump in.
Now that the stability grant opened, when we first applied, it was October the 1st. Most of us fully understood the template, or what we could claim, when can we claim, until the first meeting came about, because this is the second meeting. Now that everybody knows exactly what you want, which I think that this meeting should have came before October the 1st. That way we would not be sitting back here making up templates, because we got a full understanding of what you want now. So to me, as a daycare provider, and you're giving us a grant, this should have came about before October the 1st. So us daycare providers could have got a better understanding. Now, most people have already applied for this grant because it's on a first come, first serve basis. So everybody is rushing to jump in so they can get part of the grant. Now that the applications are already in, we may not have it correctly. Is there a way that we can do the application or the template all over again?
Ms. Cannon, I want to say thank you, because I'm sure that that is a sentiment that many are feeling on the call today. So thank you for sharing exactly how you feel. We understand that this process is moving fast. We were asked to launch this fund, and we really jumped out the gate to get this done to ensure that the community had access to the funds. So it has not been a perfect process, but it's been one where we have remained committed to serving all of you. And because of that, yes, you can submit amended information. You do not need to submit a new application. As our Senior Director of Finance just stated, you can simply go email Stabilized Childcare, submit any amended documents. So if you need to change your budget or anything of that nature, you can just submit that updated budget through that email address. Or if you have updated information that you feel like you need to share, please, again, everyone, do not feel the need to complete a new application. All you need to do is email Stabilized Childcare, and our team will respond and acknowledge the new information. No grants have been awarded to date. Those funds will be dispersed by Thanksgiving, there's still time to update your information. If you, now that you have this information, need to application.
Thank you so much.
There is one question in the chat. Will all who applied be awarded?
Kiana, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry about that. I was muted. As long as you meet all of the requirements, you would be approved, and as long as the funds are available. There was a question about the date range for the expenses. The date range is October 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020, not the 31st. It's only through December 30th, 2020.
Okay, team, I'm going to ask that you check the chat to see if we've responded to all of the questions.
Yes, there are no more questions or comments in the chat.
All right. I am going to hold space for just a moment in case anyone wants to ask any questions. Okay, so seeing none, I just want to again thank you for joining us today. I want to invite you to not just now, but always visit our website for any updates, funding opportunities, or again, to access the application, frequently asked questions, or to get that email address again, stabilizedchildcare@familyleague.org.
Kalila, I'm sorry, thank you for giving us that nice send off, but there is one more question that I think we should answer. If you can't demonstrate via receipts that you've exhausted all the funds by December 30th, do you have to give them back?
Repeat that.
If you cannot demonstrate by receipts that you have spent all the funds by December 30th, do you have to give them back?
I'm going to defer to either Don Walsh or Kiana Thompson for that.
Well, I'll give part of it and then I'll let Kiana give the other part of it. The reality is the expense has to be incurred during this period of time. So assuming that the expense is allocated, let's just say payroll is on a trailing basis, or you buy something but you don't that you'll need PPE, but it isn't actually due, you don't have to pay for it until January 15th, it would still be covered under the grant and there wouldn't be any problem with it. If you decided that you got more money than you actually needed or that you used, I'll defer to Kiana as to whether the money actually has to be given back to Family League or not.
Yes, thank you, Grant. So at the end of the grant, you will have to submit an expense report. If we do see that there is underspending, the expectation is for you to return the funds.
Okay. So I think that we received our response to that. If you've had questions and perhaps haven't had them answered, please again email Stabilized Childcare or visit the chat ends. And I just want to again thank everyone for joining us. Thank you to all of our presenters, to Don Walsh for joining us today, for our team. Thank you, Ruby, for showing us that beautiful child. Hello. We're going to close out now. This session will be made available on our website moving forward. Have a great day and happy applying, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.